My name is Bill Greehey. I was born in Fort Dodge, Iowa in June of 1936. You know, I grew up in a very poor community. My mother and father both worked, and I always had part-time jobs from the age of 12, not because I wanted to, because I needed to help the family. And when I was going to high school, I was a good student, but college was really out of the question. My parents could not afford to send to college. So I knew I wanted a better life than I had. My dad worked in the gypsum mill. All the kids that lived in my neighborhood, when they graduated from high school, they went to work in the gypsum mills just like their dad did. And I had worked in the gypsum mill 3 summers, and I knew I wanted something better than that. And so I thought about it, how am I going to go to college? And we didn't have a junior college, and I couldn't afford to go away. So I joined the Air Force, and the plan was to go to school under the GI Bill. And so I came to Lackland Air Force Base, graduated basic training, and was stationed at Lackland. And I served 3.5 years. And during the last couple of years, I actually was in the Air Force, but I parked cars at the Nick's garage. And so when I got out of the service, I continued to park cars at Nick's garage and went to college. Went to college the first 2 years at a junior college and the last 2 years at St. Mary's University. You know, I majored in accounting, and the dean of the business school, whose name was Brother Conan, really encouraged me to get into public accounting. He said, "You're only going to interview one firm, Price Waterhouse," and I did. And so I went to work for Price Waterhouse in Houston. And I only worked there 1 year, which was a requirement for a CPA. And I went to work for Exxon. And I worked for Exxon for 2 years, and I did become a CPA. I worked for Exxon for 2 years, and then Exxon was a big company. And I never felt like I was moving fast enough as hard as I was working to get ahead. And there was a company called Coastal States Gas Producing Company, Oscar Wyatt, that was getting started in Corpus Christi. And so I was hired to work for Coastal. And I was on the fast track. I went to work in '63. By the time I was 1968, I was controller. By 1971, I was the chief financial officer. So I did well with Coastal. You know, what's interesting, Coastal had entered into long-term gas contracts with cities like San Antonio, Austin, Corpus Christi. Directly or indirectly, they served the entire state of Texas. And the contracts they entered into were 20-year contracts, fixed price. And at that time, gas was, you could buy natural gas for 10 cents an MCF. And they were selling it for 24 cents. So they had a nice margin. Well, starting in the early 70s, there was a gas shortage in Texas. So they couldn't buy all the gas to supply their gas customers, so there were curtailments. Then the other problem they had was they were paying more for gas than they were selling the gas. So they went to the Railroad Commission and asked for rate relief. The customers said, "We don't trust you, Coastal. We don't trust you, Oscar Wyatt. So what we will do is we will give you an interim rate, but you have to give up the management of the company to an independent board managed by a district judge in Austin." The 5 people on that board were all well thought of, well-regarded business people, and they became the board. The first year, the board struggled. We had a lot of turnover in the company. We were losing money even under the interim rate. I was the financial observer to that board because the debt that the company had was all commingled with all the other debt. We had to make sure that what they were doing did not violate any of our bank agreements or debt agreements. Well, to make a long story short, they liked me a lot. And so they tried to hire me as the CEO. And I reluctantly took the job. And because I knew, we were losing $2.5 million a month. We had lawsuits of billions of dollars. We had 400 customers. Everybody was suing us. We had no credibility. Nobody liked us. But I really thought I could turn it around with being honest and open with all the customers. And that's what I did. And the independent board gradually established credibility. And at that point, I started working out a settlement. I said, if you like being separated from Coastal, as part of this settlement, let's make sure that the company is spun off from Coastal. And then I said, Oscar was the villain in this deal, so on this spinoff, make sure that he doesn't get any stock in this new company. And Coastal was also liable for this, so you will have to spend money finding gas for this company and selling at a discount. So that became kind of the basis for the settlement. The one thing the customers insisted upon was that the company would have to move from Houston to one of our major customers, and we would have to change our name. Obviously, I pushed for San Antonio because I knew San Antonio and they were our largest customer. But we turned the company around. We started making money. We got credibility back, and it worked out. It worked out great. I think that if I would not have taken that job, that Coastal would have gone bankrupt, because the key to the thing was really getting an independent board separated from Oscar, and then meeting with customers to establish credibility, being honest with them on gas supply, prices, and I was able to establish that credibility. In fact, the customers insisted in the settlement that I become CEO of the new company. When we came to San Antonio, they insisted we change our name. So I hired a PR firm. I said, come up with a good historic name for this company, since we're in San Antonio. And they came back with Valero. And I said, where did this name come from? I liked it. It had a great connotation, a value, a valor. It was great. And V in the New York Stock Exchange was a good place to be. And they said the first mission in San Antonio was named after a Spanish viceroy, Dave Valero. That mission was originally on the river and was moved, and that mission today is called the Alamo. So when you walk into the Alamo, there's a big plaque that says Dave Valero. I said, I love the name. So they said, we will test it. We will ask the people on the street, when you hear the name Valero, what you think of. And I was thinking value, valor, and all these things. Well, what they came up with was pizza. Evidently, there used to be a pizza place, Valero, so everybody identified it with that. So I said, disregard it. We're going to use the name Valero. Valero did great. We were a pipeline company. We had a lot of processing plants. We were in the liquid business, and we did very, very well. But we were highly regulated. So I bought a refinery, and I built the last grassroots refinery built in the United States. And this refinery was the most modern, technologically advanced. What it would take is the bottom of a barrel of crude called residual after it was processed and turn it into a premium product, unleaded gasoline. And this oil sold at a big discount from regular crude oil. So we did great with this refinery.
Where was it?
In Corpus Christi. Okay. And this refinery is really the one that made us all the money that, allowed us to grow that we did. But the minute the refinery got completed, there was a coal strike in Great Britain. and they were using residual oil for electricity. So all of a sudden, residual oil started selling at a premium of crude oil. So our feedstock was costing more than crude oil. So we had some significant losses for about 6-9 months until that coal strike was settled. But after that, the refinery was a great success. During this period of time, pipelines and liquid operations were selling at big premiums in the marketplace. So our stock, if we would have been a pipeline company, would have been much higher. But it was weighted down because we were also in the refining business. So at that time, I thought we were at the bottom of the cycle of refining. I thought that you could buy refineries 10 cents on the dollar. Refineries weren't making money, but I could see in the future where they were. So I sold the gas business to PG&E, and I concentrated on growing the refinery business. And immediately I bought 3 refineries from Solomon Brothers, one in Krotz Springs, Louisiana, one in Texas City, and one in Houston. And then after that, we just started acquiring refineries and acquiring companies. Valero was a great success story. We acquired a lot of refineries, 10 cents on the dollar. A lot of these refineries paid out in a year's time. So we were doing very, very well. We bought Diamond Shamrock, which was a public company. They were in refining and retail. They were actually bigger than we were. They had a lot more people than we did. They were almost directly across the street from where we were here in San Antonio. And that's how we got into the retail part of our business. Incidentally, one of the things we brag about, we have never had a layoff. So when we acquired Diamond Shamrock, they had all the services that we had. And so everybody thought we were going to have these massive layoffs. We did not have a layoff. We absorbed all those people, and within a year we were growing so fast that we absorbed all the people and we were hiring people. You know, the culture that we had is an easy culture to accept. First of all, employees come first. And then the second thing is you have to give back to the community that has been so good to us. People take great pride in being involved in the community and giving back. It makes them much better, dedicated employees. Well, let me tell you, the first thing that we did was significant. When we were in Houston, even though we were under this independent management, we were involved in the community, and the United Way was our top priority. So we had 100% giving to the United Way. We had the highest per capita giving in Houston. And so when we came to San Antonio, no other company had these kind of campaigns. And I will tell you, when they saw what Valero was doing, everybody started wanting to compete with us. In fact, one CEO said, "My goal is to beat you." And I said, "I hope you do, because that's good for the community, but I will tell you, you'll never do it." And when I stepped down in 2005, I wanted to do 2 things. I wanted to give back to the community financially. I set up the foundation with stock. The other thing I wanted to do was do something for San Antonio that wasn't being done. And I happened to watch a program on television, the homeless problem that we have. And when I was watching that program, all we were doing was recycling the homeless people. They'd get arrested, they'd go to jail, they'd get released, they'd get arrested. They'd go back and forth, back and forth. Same thing, when they got sick, they'd go to the emergency room, they'd release them back on the street, they'd get sick again, go back in the emergency room. So I talked to the mayor. I said, we as a city are failing the homeless people. We're not addressing the root cause. We're not concentrating on transformation, life skills, job skills, so lead an independent life. He said, what do you think we should do? And so my concept of what we should do is Haven for Hope. And I realized I wasn't the smartest guy in the world, that surely other cities had what we had. Well, I found out that very few cities have transformation, and no one really has what we have at Haven for Hope. We built the campus for $101 million. It was public-private partnership. City, state, and county gave 40. Private sector gave 61. We opened up in 2010. Since we opened in 2010, we've had over 10,000 that have graduated that have gone on to lead a much better life. One of the first things that I did was I chaired the Dome campaign, which was a referendum. And no one expected that tax to pass to pay for the Dome Stadium, but it did. So that was a 6-month effort that I had with a lot of Valero people that were involved. After that, I played a key role in getting a bowl game in San Antonio. In fact, Valero put up the letter of credit for the first 4 or 5 years to guarantee that the players would get paid. So that was big. The Valero Texas Open. Valero Texas Open is the oldest tournament, PGA tournament, in the same city. They had a lot of different sponsors. They didn't have any continuity. They never raised any money. So PGA pulled it away from San Antonio. San Antonio had lost it. So they went out for bids. At that time, we had just bought Diamond Shamrock. They were big in the retail business, so I could justify that tournament based upon our retail business. And so I had a hard time convincing the PGA commissioner to leave it in San Antonio. He said, San Antonio's never supported the tournament. You've never had continuity of sponsors. Nobody comes to the tournament. And so we're going to change all that. He said, I'll give you 1 year. And I said, I don't want it for 1 year. You know, we bid on 5 years, so we insisted on 5 years. The Valero Texas Open, every single year we had it, I had it 5 years while I was CEO. Every year we raised more money, new money, than any PGA tournament. Well, I think, first of all, I work hard. And I'm a very positive, can-do guy. And I realize I'm not the smartest guy. So I've had good people working for me that I listen to. And I think that's really been the secret. You know, the first thing that you have to do is, when you get out of college, that isn't when you stop learning. You need to continue to learn and to study. I got in the oil and gas business. I didn't know anything about oil and gas, but I will tell you, I read every book that I could on the oil and gas business so that I knew the business. The other thing is, you got to work hard. There's no substitute for hard work and a good attitude. And you do those and you're going to be successful. You know, I really did not. Oscar Wyatt was the CEO of Coastal. And I worked with him a long time before I went with the independent management. But, you know, I was just a young guy. And I went right up the corporate ladder at a very, very young age. And, you know, I was controller when I was 28 and chief financial officer at 31. And he was the guy that he didn't care how old you were. He recognized talent. And I learned a lot from him on how to make money and how to work with people. I love San Antonio. You know, it's a great community to live. It's a great community to raise your kids. It's a large city, but yet it's a small city. I mean, when you're in a business community and you're involved in the community, it's the same people all the time that are giving back to the community. I have a strong faith, and I believe very strongly that if you work hard, that everything depends upon you, and you pray hard, everything depends upon God, then all things are possible. And faith has played a key part in every aspect of my life. But the thing that I'm most proud of is Haven for Hope. I actually had to work harder for Haven for Hope, to get it done. But it's the most satisfying thing I've ever done.